Vice President cancel his trip the other day to New Hampshire?
You'll know in about 2 weeks.
What is it?
There was a very interesting problem that they had in New Hampshire. And I can't tell you about it. It was but had nothing to do with White House. There was a problem up there, and I won't go into what the problem was, but you'll see in about a week or 2 weeks. President Obama wanted to meet with Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un said no. Numerous occasions he called, and right now we have a very nice relationship. We've done a lot, and we've gotten our hostages back. We're getting the remains back. A lot of good things are happening, and there's been no nuclear testing. During President Obama, they were nuclear testing. They were sending missiles. Right now, everything's nice and quiet.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, a massive 7.1 earthquake has hit Southern California. We're going to take a look at that story and a bunch of other incredible breaking news here on this episode of Just Informed Talk. So I hope you guys stick around and enjoy. I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I always like to begin by saying thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and hit that like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. So, today, we're going to look back. Here's the latest Q-board, June 27th. So, we are still in a holding pattern, and there is a lot happening. As always, we're going to get into the latest news stories, including this breaking story about this massive earthquake in Southern California near Los Angeles. And we're also going to take a look at a few other things, some very fascinating breaking stories. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what happened this last few days. I've been obviously in Washington, D.C. I literally just got off the plane. And of course, I'm right back to work for you guys, putting together the stories that you need to hear that the mainstream media won't talk about or will completely skew so that you don't get the real story. So that's where we're going to start. But before we get into everything, I always remind everyone to come back here, watch these last few videos, and share them on your social media, because I always say, look, the suggested videos just don't work in certain cases as far as YouTube goes, and it's for completely, in my opinion, biased, unfair reasons. But with that being said, you guys got to go hit the share button yourselves at the bottom of this video to get the word out about this channel, and that helps out big time. So I encourage everyone to do that. Also, a quick note before we get started too, I did do one live stream, and I know I told you guys I was going to do multiple live streams from the event at Washington, D.C., but it was really busy, and we were doing some other work there as well. And when I got inside the event, just to give you a quick rundown of that, the networks were so worked, I guess, because there's so many people there. I mean, there was like 1 million people there. It felt like that the live stream just wouldn't work. My apps wouldn't work. My phone basically just stopped working, which was pretty interesting, and I'm not sure what that's all about. Obviously, you know, given the history of YouTube and what they've been known to do, and Google and all these other big tech companies, I wouldn't put anything past them. But I'll tell you, I did try to get that content up, but it just didn't end up working out. So you guys can go watch this. This is a cool little feature I did, a live stream. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the video. So so that's basically that. And also, if you're scratching your going, what is QAnon? What's the Great Awakening? Please come here, watch this video, share this one on your social media, and get the word out that way as well. So today, this is the newest, latest, biggest story. This is a massive 7.1 earthquake that's rocked Southern California. And this apparently is near Los Angeles, and it's been felt, I believe, by people in that area. And this is not just a isolated incident. There's been an incredible string of earthquakes that have been happening in rapid succession over the past few days, I believe. And here's an idea of it. This is a map that kind of shows you how many have happened in the last 10 days and how frequent they continue to come. So I believe here's the main one. This was the 7.1. Now this is near I don't know if this map has all of the exact, these are the more local cities, but I believe this is more near Bakersfield, and then it's just on the other side from where LA is. And Ridgecrest is really one of the big places that's getting affected very strongly by this. And you can see here, you know, you're having these swarms of earthquakes. So this is a pretty big piece of news that we're going to have to keep an eye on because, as we all know, there's a few things that you have to take into account when you think about California and earthquakes. And the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the San Andreas Fault and how scientists have been predicting for quite some time that they are expecting a much bigger seismic event than these smaller ones, even though a 7.1 is quite a large one. And I've read comments about this earthquake from people who live near the area there who say that like I saw one person write, they've lived there for 50 years and have never felt that kind of earthquake happen. Now, of course, that's a little anecdotal, but it does give you an idea of the scale of this and how people are really taking this seriously. So if you're in one of these affected areas, my best advice to you is just follow the warnings and advisories from the local authorities and really do your best to move to somewhere where there's not earthquakes, if you're at all able to do that. But if you're not, then I don't know. I don't know much about earthquakes, so I'd build a strong house. Yeah, that was probably terrible advice, but I hope you really are safe. I'm praying for each and every one of you out there who are affected by this because it is a serious issue, and we're gonna keep an eye on this story. Who knows what's gonna happen? There's a lot to be said for the effect these earthquakes are gonna end up having. If they continue at this rate and pace, this is going to be building into a much larger movement, which would be very devastating for the people of California. So one thing I remember is, when we look at the Q boards and we remember what everyone keeps telling us, Q gives us all these pictures, and when we talk about California, we have to remember that there's a lot going on there, from the mysterious fires that just ravaged that state recently and burned down entire neighborhoods, basically cleared out, huge blocks of cities. And then all the way up to what Q's told us about the Long Beach port and how it's being used for nefarious reasons. There was a story that came out recently that I reported on here in the channel where President Trump, through his Homeland Security, had issued a ruling that the Chinese had to sell their interest in the port of Long Beach. Now, this is not a coincidence. We talk about things here on the Q board that could be happening, but we do know this happens every day. There's drug trafficking and human trafficking, especially sex trafficking as far as humans go. And that's really what this is all about, I think, is shutting down those illegal black market avenues. And Q told us back then, First and 10 on the 40, gave us this picture of the Long Beach port, and of course gave us this tweet from Sarah A. Carter, who says, latest, Mueller's report ends witch hunt, but what's about to unfold is the real story. What will unfold is the investigation historians will consider one of the greatest political witch hunts in U.S. history. And of course, this is writing about what Barr is going to end up unfolding through Mueller's report about the FISA abuse, about how they targeted President Trump, about how they tried to set him up to illegally remove him from office. This is not a game, and these Democrats realize that they're playing for everything they have. It's their lives are on the line. Well, let's put it this way: their political lives at minimum are certainly on the line, and I can't speculate on the other. But I will say this: that it is incredibly telling that we've had this information and we know to look at California. And I'm not necessarily connecting those two incidents, but because this incident did happen in California, I would like to, that's why I chose to reiterate this story, because I've been told by my sources who I have, been given little pieces here and there, that LA is the touchdown. LA is going to basically show us, and when we look back after this is all said and done, it's gonna be one of the main hubs for the things that we've been fighting here every day on this through this movement with President Trump for our country, and obviously in my case, and probably your case if you're here, most importantly for God. against evil. So this is really an important story, obviously. So another story I want to talk about here. This one kind of ties back to another video I did, but President Trump was in a press conference. And as you guys saw at the beginning of this video, the little clip of President Trump, he was saying that something happened in New Hampshire. And that's why VP Mike Pence had to cancel his flight and turn around and come back to the White House on Tuesday. And I'm not sure what's going to come out. But President Trump says the truth will come out in 2 weeks about this. Now, I'm just, as somebody who's been examining these things for quite some time, I wasn't quite convinced with that answer. But, you know, to each their own, I guess. At this point, what this might connect back to is a story. I want you guys, if you want, go watch this story here. We had speculative reports a few days ago about a U.S. submarine that may have been sunk off the coast of Alaska. This coincided with the story of a Russian submarine that was heavily damaged and 14 members of the crew were killed. This was made public, but there were speculative stories that were happening from different people behind the scenes who were saying publicly, including, as I mentioned in my last video, Hal Turner, that there was the possibility that a U.S. submarine had been sunk in a skirmish that happened in U.S. waters, where a U.S. sub found the Russian sub inside of our territorial waters, and when they engaged them, they may have, in fact, suffered a tragic loss. But we don't know that. That's still in the air. The Pentagon sources for the Hal Turner, who was reporting this, have neither confirmed nor denied it. But you should watch this video if you want to get more information on that, because that'll help you kind of catch up to where we're at and why this story matters. And I don't know what happened in New Hampshire, but we'll have to wait and see what that sounds like. Here's another story. So, you know, we've talked about Puerto Rico a little bit here. President Trump has had a lot to say about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, of course, suffered an incredible tragedy with the hurricane, but then it was just complete circus afterwards, where they were trying to figure out how to rebuild. They were trying to figure out how to provide aid. They were trying to figure out how to help people. And the government of Puerto Rico did not seem to be very, or the local government in Puerto Rico did not seem to be very helpful toward the president, which caused a lot of issues. And we ended up giving them, I think we gave them more money in aid than we have, like, pretty much for any other recent disaster. So we're talking billions and billions of dollars, which they've used to basically rebuild parts of their power infrastructure. But there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse that's being alleged to be happening down there. And there's a lot of tampering and distorting the actual numbers as far as the needs and the also, you know, people have made people have pointed out that the numbers from the earthquake, or excuse me, the hurricane, as far as casualties go, may have been inflated. Now, why do I say that? Well, because you really can't do what they were trying to do. I believe they were trying to count that people who just happened to pass away after the hurricane were a casualty of the hurricane. Now, in some cases, yes, they could have been severely affected and lost their lives due to that hurricane specifically. But in a lot of other cases, you can't just start saying that every single person who dies after a hurricane is a casualty of the hurricane trying to get more federal money. That's what the argument was being, that's the argument that was being made. So I thought that was something interesting to point out. And the FBI here, as I'm pointing out, is executing a search warrant against a primary bank in Puerto Rico. Wouldn't you know, this South Bank. So the FBI says that they have executed a search warrant at the offices of South Bank International, issued based on probable cause for the following federal law violations: conspiracy to defraud the United States Department of Treasury, wire fraud, money laundering violations, domestic and international, failure to file suspicious activity reports. So these could be related to something, to the way that they receive funds from the government. If you're defrauding the United States Department of Treasury, that means that you're obviously falsifying information and misleading them into providing you with more funding. That's what this whole story is about, and we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Here's another story I thought was interesting. Nate Kane, one of the Patriots, who obviously is a whistleblower, who we keep a bright light on as a Patriot, who helped his country out big time, is laughing his butt off right now after receiving an email from the FireEye, which is this cyber defense summit. Apparently, Hillary Clinton will no longer be the keynote speaker for one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in Washington, D.C. This is like, I mean, it's hilarious because if you watch this, or if you saw the comment section like he's pointing out here on it, when they made the announcement, and I was even joking that, what's she going to show you how to bleach bit a server, how to set up an illegal server so you can communicate secretly with foreign governments to sell them secrets so that you could enrich yourself at your foundation. Is that the kind of cyber defense summit you're going to run there, FireEye? So it's hilarious. It's laughable. It's a joke. They realized that they were literally making themselves look like the most incompetent company in the world to believe that Hillary Clinton was a wise person to bring to a conference about cyber defense. That is like bringing, Hannibal Lecter to be the head speaker at a conference for chefs. It's insanity. It's laughable. It's a joke. And, look, these people obviously realized they made a huge mistake, and then they backtracked, as they should have. They shouldn't have made that mistake in the beginning, but I think it tells us everything we need to know about FireEye and how I'll never be using that company ever. And if you have half a, brain cell, you probably shouldn't yourself. So that's just something I would throw out there. So here's another doozy of a story. We got John Podesta coming out, and I believe he penned this op-ed for the Washington Post talking about how the law strongly is on the side of House Democrats. And it asked the question, will Trump judges follow the law? House Democrats are filing a lawsuit for Trump's tax returns, seeking access to financial records. So this person, who just looks like the snakiest, worst kind of person you ever imagine. And I'm not just saying that to be mean. I'm just saying that's how he strikes me as a human being, given especially the stuff that we know. Anyway, what you don't see is that there's just like everybody on the internet came after this. You could see this. He makes this tweet, right? Because he's got such a big following, such an important guy, that he's got 50 likes and 130 comments. And most of the comments go like this. Hey, John Podesta, how about you tell us about the time you wrote in WikiLeaks about wet works at the Vineyard? And shortly after, only 4 days after you wrote this, we find that Chief Justice Antonin Scalia was found dead at the Chibolo Creek Ranch in Shafter, Texas. Could you tell us about this? Because this graphic is very interesting. It puts a lot together here. So what you see here is the story itself. Justice Scalia died in his sleep at age 79 on the night of February 12th or the morning of February 13th, 2016, following an afternoon of quail hunting and dining at the Chipolo Creek Ranch in Shafter, Texas. He was pronounced dead of apparent natural causes. Now, as I believe, very controversial at the time, they didn't have an autopsy. I wonder why they didn't have an autopsy. That sounds very strange, and they very much put a rush on the funeral. And I'm not sure if he was cremated, but I believe that was a part of the story as well. So anyway, let's look at an email that John Podesta received on February 9th, 2016, so 4 days before Antonin Scalia was found dead. It says here, I am all in. Sounds like it will be a bad night. We all need to buckle up and double down. Then John Podesta replies to this by saying PM, and then of course it says here not PM, that's 4:30, but it says here, didn't think wet works meant pool parties at the Vineyard. What does that mean? Wet works is a term that's used by intelligence officers and others, military intelligence officers. If I believe it's a term that means murder. It means the wet is referring to blood, and the work is secret work, a secret job, a secret hit. Then a pool party, I think, also has something to do with something in that vein of a type of reference to a hit or to a place, right? But the person here puts together a pretty interesting thing. The Chipolo Creek Ranch, there's a vineyard and a big pool in the middle of it, and it is a very fancy, private, elite, retreat. So what's easily able to be put together, oh, and it says here, I didn't see this part, wet work is actually a euphemism for murder or assassination, of course. So what you could put together from this is that 4 days before Antonin Scalia was found dead at a vineyard with a pool, John Podesta received an email from somebody saying that they were all in on something very nefarious and warning him to buckle down, to which he responds that he didn't think that they were going to do wet works and pool parties at the vineyard. So that's one example of John Podesta. Here's one. He's holding up these numbers with the fish, the 14 and the fish. There's a really convoluted way of understanding what that means. It's very, very sick and twisted if you actually start to do the research on it. But here's an interesting part from WikiLeaks where he received an email saying that there was a handkerchief that was left behind at one of these houses, right? And apparently it was a black and with white, in describing the handkerchief, it says in the email, it's black with white, and I think it has a map that seems pizza related. Does anyone know what that means? Besides what we know from the FBI, who's released information on how child predators and molesters have secret code words, pizza and hot dogs and all these other weird, sick, in my opinion, demonic, satanic stuff that they use to talk about how they're going to, or what kind of kids they're going to abuse and what they do. Now, I'm just saying here, what does this mean? You guys tell me. I'm not saying it means anything. Could mean nothing. It could mean something. But it is strange, right? So you start putting that together. Now, Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who was convicted of child molestation, mind you, is being referenced here in this interview or in this email, where it seems that Tony Podesta writes, "I have stayed in touch with Denny Hastert and Jan Etelt and Andy Dolan all these years," and apparently, I guess this was after he had been convicted. To which it says the day before his indictment, Jake Seward, one of the heads of Goldman Sachs, sends this to John Podesta saying, "It might be time for Denny to vanish to an undisclosed Japanese island." What does that mean? Disappear to an undisclosed Japanese island. What's going on a Japanese island? After knowing what seeing what I've found with that Jeffrey Epstein, I don't even want to know what's going on in this island. Well, I guess I do, so we can stop it, but it's just disturbing to say the least. And of course, finally, we have these mention of these kids in a pool. It's all sick and disgusting. We have Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley now talking about how basically our country's awful and they hate the Declaration of Independence. They think it's sexist and racist and prejudiced. That's great. Really patriotic stuff there. Then you have this story about Joe Biden threatening political violence physical violence against Trump, saying he's like the bully I'd smack in the mouth. This guy is just all hot air, and this picture says everything you need to know about him. So if you're a Democrat and you're on the left and you're going to vote for him, just remember this picture and remember this headline. That's what these people do. They promote violence. It's sick. It's disgusting. And they're the ones who are on the fast track to becoming the new fascist authoritarians. And we're the ones standing in opposition to that. So just remember that. And of course, Team Vogue and their propaganda and how they're trying to brainwash our children into believing that America is basically just a criminal cartel that needs to be destroyed and turned over to their globalist overlords over in Europe, so that they can give Jay-Z and Beyonce another satanic concert so they can worship the devil and trick our children into believing that they're somehow cool, honest, and good people, when in reality, they're just a bunch of satanic, devil-worshipping demons from hell. That's all there is to it. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Also, one more thing, Nikola Tesla, more of his documents are being released. If you want to check it out, there'll be a link at the bottom of this. So there's a lot of information to skim through. So if you're interested in doing that kind of stuff, go check it out. That's going to be it for me, though. Thanks for watching this episode. A few more things before we go. If you guys want to help out the channel, come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if you guys like this content, want to see me make more. Share these videos on your social media. And don't forget to leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to think about all of this. So, a couple other ways you can help out. Come over here and find me at justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk. Links to the Q stuff, different news sites, breaking news, and of course, the latest videos from the channel here, so you should go check that out. Also, don't forget to come find me over here on Twitter at justinformu. Again, that's at justinform, the letter U, on Twitter, so you should go check that out as well. A couple other ways you can help out the channel. Come over here and find my new channel, Just Informed Podcast. New content will be coming up. I got another interview scheduled that should be pretty cool, so you guys should keep an eye on this channel. And if you haven't come here, come to this channel, Just Informed Podcast, hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications so you get notified when I post the videos over here. It's like basically a place where you can get behind the scenes content and long form interviews, and I really want you guys to start checking this out as well. And if you hit the bell, hopefully you'll get notified by YouTube, but who knows, right? That's why I also ask if you can or if you can possibly, please help financially. There is a couple ways you can do that. Patreon, a crowdfunding website, which is basically pretty easy. patreon.com. It's a monthly donation. You come here, click this button, become a patron, set it and forget it, and know you're helping create content on a regular basis here. And that's really what has kept this channel alive this long. So without your help, we wouldn't be here still. So thank you so much to everybody who contributes on a regular basis. And that's why I made the promise to never stop bringing you guys the information. As long as you're willing to come and watch it, I'll always be providing it. And your support is greatly appreciated. So thank you. And a special thank you to everybody who I saw this weekend or this last few days in DC. I can't mention all of you right now, but you guys know who you are. It was a pleasure meeting all of you, and some of you seeing you guys again. And I hope we get a chance to see each other soon as well. So I really enjoyed that. And another way you can help out is this GoFundMe I've set up, which is for if you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, you can come here and you can do that. So that's just another way you can help out. So before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace. Now it's truly greater. For today, I want to read a pretty simple piece of scripture. It's just one verse out of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 7. But I think it speaks volumes, and I want to talk about it for a second. It says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." And that's it. Fear of the Lord is not necessarily what some people seem to interpret it as. Some people think that means, why would the Lord want us to fear him? Well, when you think about fear, I'd like you to try to understand that it's not a fear as in a terror in your heart. It's a fear is a reverence. And of course, yes, God is an incredibly powerful and mighty God. And fearing God is a part of having reverence for God and having respect and cherishing God's incredible might and glory. And that's, as it says there, the beginning of knowledge, because one cannot ever hope to understand the true meaning of existence and the true full capacity of knowledge without having reverence and moreoverly a humility toward the fact that they don't know everything and that God is all powerful and omnipotent and knows everything and is omniscient. So this is really, to me, a reminder that we should all keep telling ourselves on a regular basis that Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and that fools despise wisdom and instruction. So spread that to your family and friends and take that into your heart. And remember that God has given you an incredible gift. Your eternal salvation has been bought and paid for with the blood of Jesus Christ. The Holy Spirit lives in you, and God is above, watching out for every one of us. So remember that and give that gift to your friends and family and your loved ones, and help us to teach others to understand that loving God and fearing God are almost pretty much one and the same. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I want to say thank you guys for watching this episode. A few more things before we go. Obviously, click the big red subscribe button if you haven't. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and don't forget to hit the like button. Hit it, punch it, smash it, bop it, kick it, whatever you want to do. Hit the like button. If you guys like this content and want to see me make more, that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.